Y'all remember where we were?
I was in Second Kings.
2 Kings 20 or 2 Chronicles 32, which is a lot shorter, which is kind of odd since it's King of Judah's is usually Chronicles, but 2 Kings actually has more about this part of Hezekiah. And if you wanted to, you could go to Isaiah 38 and 39. All three of these are the same account. And this is Hezekiah's illness. Get your house in order. A bad message from a good preacher. Isaiah shows up. Get your house in order. Now, supposedly this happens around 701 BC. And with the writers of the Old Testament, you know, we write a book or we read a book and we expect this account to follow this account to follow this account. Sometimes they just throw this here, which actually belongs here. So what we're going to read tonight is actually something, and we're going to see it a little later on mentioned, that this is happening in the midst of the last chapter. You know, he's done all the restorations and reforms and all that we've looked at. Well, I don't know how many weeks it was, but this has been the third of this study on Hezekiah. The first time we talked about reforms and revival, Passover. The second time we talked about the Assyrians surrounding the city and Hezekiah coming before the Lord and you know, on the altar, bringing this letter that he gets from the king of Assyria and praying for God, and then God sends an angel, and that angel strikes down 185,000. What we're looking at tonight is actually before the 185,000. He's got his plate full. He's not only dealing with an army that's out there, it's going to mention it here in a minute, but he's got this health issue that is thrown in afterwards, just so we know what God did during the health issue situation. And God's going to give him some extra time. Now, Jewish tradition says this was 3 days before the 185,000 were killed by the angel. And it says that the day that the 185,000 were killed by the angel was actually a Passover, which would be interesting because in Egypt, the Passover, the original one, was when a death angel came through and wiped out I don't know how many Egyptians, firstborns, but supposedly that's tradition-wise that the 185,000 died on a Passover day. But anyway, chronologically, this falls not after the 185,000, but in the midst of all that unfolding. But anyway, in verse 1 it says, in those days Hezekiah became mortally ill. If you got an army surrounding you, you don't want to be on your deathbed. And all of a sudden, he finds himself very, very sick. And 2 Kings 20, verses 1 through 3, it says, mortally ill, and Isaiah the prophet, the son of Amos, came to him and says, thus saith the Lord. You know, you'd hope Isaiah would come and say, I'm here to heal you, to make you feel better, to raise you up from your deathbed. He says, set your house in order, that you shall die and not live. Thank you, Isaiah, for that. How'd you like me to come visit you in the hospital and say, you know, it's good to be here, but the Lord sent me, you're going to die. You're not coming out of here alive. You're coming out of here feet first. See, what kind of preacher are you? Pray for me to get healed. You know, I visited a lady in a nursing home, and I started to pray for her, and she said, don't you pray for me to live. I said, I'm supposed to pray for you to live. She was ready to go. So she... Oh, yeah. My mom had a similar thing. You know, 147,000 people die every day, supposedly. I don't know how many that is per hour, per minute, per second, probably. But you think if you eat right, you exercise, you get this positive mindset that you're going to live forever. The Bible says it's appointed unto man once to die, that you can stave it off and you can be as healthy as you want to be or try to be, and then all of a sudden you get hit by a truck or a tumor. You know, there's a lady on Fox News, a young 30-ish gal that, you know, one of the news, I tried to keep up with the news over there through the Fox app, but tried to look at as little news from America as I possibly could. But she has a brain tumor or something going on. I mean, what do you do when you suddenly get a message saying your time's up? Set your house in order. You didn't expect this. His mind was on this army out there, and he's trying to deal with all this. He's got a revival that's just happened. He's probably feeling pretty good about himself. And all of a sudden, I'm not feeling so good. I'm going to lay down a while. And here comes Isaiah. You're going to die. Oh my, how did all this get there? And just out of nowhere, it comes to you, set your house in order because you are going to die. Suppose that he's like about 39 years of age at this point. He's actually going to be halfway through. He started to reign at 25, so this is 14 years into his reign. We're going to see here that God gives him extra time, which is about exactly what he's already had. But he has, in 14 years, he has no male heir. In the next 15 years, he's going to get that male heir. Not going to be such a good one. But here you have one of the most godly kings that there has been. And here he's going to have a disease and die. You know, good and godly people aren't supposed to get sick and die. What about Job? Job got pretty sick. He was about to die. In fact, his wife suggested he just die. You know, curse God and die. He was so bad off. You look at others like Paul. You know, Paul got sick. Timothy had stomach problems. Elijah, it says that he got sick with the disease that he was going to die of. And here you have Hezekiah, sick as well. And, you know, Isaiah didn't come in and say, you just need to have faith. If you just have faith, you will stand up and you will command that disease to go out because by his stripes you're healed and all that. You know, God heals. God does that, believe me. But we can't command God to do that. Our times are in his hand. And here he shows up through Isaiah, God does, and he tells him, you're going to die. You know, Daniel chapter 5, Belshazzar was having that feast. And suddenly, while they're drinking and having a good time and even drinking out of the utensils of the Lord's house that were brought, suddenly it says in verses 5 and 6 that a hand comes and writes on the wall, your time is up. Time for the Medes and the Persians. Your time is up. You've been weighed in the balance and you've been found wanting. He was in the middle of a party. Suddenly he's told, your time is up. It says when he heard this that he turned his face to the wall and he prayed to the Lord, saying, remember now, O Lord, I beseech you, how I've walked before you in truth and with a whole heart and have done what is good in your sight. And it says that Hezekiah wept bitterly. What would you do if you had impending death? You know, we had a woman up in Woodward that she got this bad report. She was worried she was going to die. I think she told Lynn that when she was going through all of this, that she was looking around the congregation trying to figure out, pick a wife for her husband when she was gone out of the congregation there in the church. That's what she was worried about doing because she knew her time was up. That was pretty funny at the time because she found out that she wasn't in such bad situation that she actually wasn't going to die, and she felt kind of bad. But she said, yeah, I was looking for who's going to marry. Who's he going to marry? Who should I pick for? Who should I encourage him to marry? But what would you do? What did Lazarus do when Lazarus come forth? Okay, now Lazarus, what are you going to do with the rest of your life? You got this second chance. You know, what would Hezekiah do? What would you do if all of a sudden you got up off your deathbed And what it says here, he's going to be given 15 more years. What would you do with those 15 more years? Well, he's got his face to the wall. Often we've got our back to the wall and we're trying to fight ourselves out of something. But when depression hits, when God, a doctor can tell you you're going to die. You've only got 6 months. Well, I'm going to fight this, doctor. I'm going to prove you wrong. How do you do that with God? The great physician knows exactly what's going to happen to us. There is no fight when God tells us our time is up. So he's got his face to the wall now. And he did the right thing. If I had this pronouncement on my life, I would start eating broccoli every meal and start running 3 times a day, and I would fight it somehow. The first thing he did was pray. He prayed. And that's exactly what God wants us to do, because in his prayer it began this momentum toward God's giving him more time. And there are things I think God is going to tell us in heaven. I would have done this for you, but you never asked for it. You never prayed. Yeah, you got sick and you got here and 20 whatever. Why didn't you pray? You might have bought an extra 15 years. In Hezekiah, he prays. And while he is praying, God starts to work, because starting in verse 4 it says, before Isaiah had gone out of the middle court, the word of the Lord came to him, saying, turn around, return, and say to Hezekiah, the leader of my people, thus says the Lord, the God of your father David, I've heard your prayer. I've seen your tears. Behold, I will heal you. On the 3rd day you shall go up to the house of the Lord. I will add 15 years to your life. And I will deliver you and this city from the hand of the king of Assyria. So that shows you that the king of Assyria is still out there and threatening them, which we looked at. And so this is happening before the 185,000 were killed by the angel and the king of Assyria left. And I will defend this city for my own sake and for my servant David's sake. He says he's going to heal him. You're going to get 15 more years. Now, how is God going to do this? Now, you got all these different ways that Jesus healed, that people were healed. Now, Jesus put mud on the eyes sometimes. Sometimes he just said it. It's great that he did it in all different ways, or we'd all be doing it the same way and expecting, let's go get mud and put it on somebody's eyes every time somebody had an eye problem. Here, verse 7, Isaiah said, take a cake of figs. Go down to Walmart. Go to the cookie aisle and get some Fig Newtons. Bring them out. And he said, lay it on the boil. So whatever he had, it had open sores as part of it. And it says, and he recovered. So getting well is not just, I got faith, I'm not going to do anything treatment-wise. It's a combination. Here he does a treatment which is more of a natural treatment, putting something that's going to absorb the sickness and everything, the pus and all that. It's going to pull it out. And also prayer. And in the combination of the two, God uses that to bring healing, to give him another 15 years. Now Hezekiah said to Isaiah, what will be the sign that the Lord will heal me, and that I shall go up to the house of the Lord on the third day? In the mind of an Old Testament person, when God makes a pronouncement, it's not really reversible. It's like the pronouncement of, in the book of Daniel, the king, Nebuchadnezzar, they got him to make this pronouncement. And even though the king knew he had been fooled, knew that he did not want this to happen to Daniel, and that it had been done primarily because they were jealous of Daniel and all that, he couldn't reverse it, and couldn't reverse it with Esther and all that the pronouncement had been out there, the seal had been done. And so in the mind of a person then is that I need to know that God can actually reverse, because kings, they don't do that. But God would actually change his mind on this. and I need a sign. And Isaiah said, this shall be the sign to you from the Lord, that the Lord will do the thing that he has spoken. Shall the shadow go forward 10 steps or go backward 10 steps? Now they would tell time by a stairway that the sun would hit. And wherever the sun was hitting on that stairway would be the time of day. You want that shadow on that stairway to go backward or to go forward or go backward. And Hezekiah said, well, it's easy for the shadow to decline 10 steps. It is easy for the shadow to decline 10 steps. No, but let the shadow turn backward 10 steps. Decline down, come down, which would be forward, I guess, in the progress as far as indicating the time of day. But let it turn backwards, go backwards in time. That would indicate, if I'm going to get 15 more years, if this death, my life's going to go backwards, how'd you like to be 15 years younger? Get 15 more years? I mean, 15 years younger, I'd still be an old guy from what I thought all my life. But man, 61 years old, 15 years younger would seem like, running around youth compared to now. If I was just Ginger's age, I would think, man, I'm young. 15 years. But indicating by the sun going in reverse order kind of spoke of also his life going in reverse order as well. So Isaiah the prophet cried to the Lord, and he brought the shadow on the stairway back 10 steps by which it had gone down, declined on the stairway of Ahaz. Now you got books written, you got all these astrophysicists and all this saying, well, the earth must have stopped the 1,000-mile-per-hour rotation, and all of a sudden all the water's sloshing out of the Pacific Ocean because everything stopped all of a sudden, and they try to, who knows how it happened, why it happened. God had created it all, can bring it about. If Jesus can walk on water and not go under, God's got it all in control. Whatever he did and how he did it, it's like if Genesis 1:1 is true, then everything else is easy. It's easy for God. If Lazarus could, 4 days dead, he didn't come out like the Walking Dead and all decayed and everything for the rest of his life. His flesh was restored from the process of decay. God can do that. He can restore things backwards to the health state. He can move things backwards, forwards. It's God.
24 hours.
He what?
24 hours. Sun stood still.
So yeah, with Joshua, the sun. Yeah, so they could do some more whooping. You gave him time. The sun stood still. But anyway, you have God giving him this sign and giving him this recovery and promising him 15 more years. Now in Isaiah, this is part of Isaiah 38 is a writing that Hezekiah made about this moment in his life. And this is what he said: in the middle of my life, I am to enter the gates of Sheol. I am to be deprived of the rest of my years. I said, I will not see the Lord in the land of the living. I will look on man no more among the inhabitants of the world. That's what was going through his mind. I'm going to die at 39. I'm going to go to Sheol, the place of the dead, deprived of the rest of my years. He said, like a shepherd's tent, my dwelling is pulled up and removed from me. As a weaver, I rolled up my life. While the weaver was doing the rug or the cloth, it was pulled out of the loom when it wasn't even finished, he's saying. He cuts me off from the loom from day into night. You make an end of me. I'm composed. I compose my soul until morning. What shall I say? For he has spoken to me, and he himself has done it. I will wander about all my years because of the bitterness of my soul. O Lord, by these things men live, and in all these things is the life of my spirit. O restore me to health and let me live. And he goes, Lo, for my own welfare, I had great bitterness. It is you who has kept my soul from the pit of nothingness. He's talking about what God did for him. And there's a passage here that we quote a lot, but it's in the context of him being kept from dying at this young age. He says, "For you have cast all my sins behind your back." You didn't allow my sins and things I've done wrong to come into account right now at age 39. You cast them behind my back, and you've given me more time. And that's what Jesus does for us. He doesn't make our sins accountable to us in the moment, but he forgives them. He casts them behind our back, and then we are given eternity. In spite of them, we're given more time. We're given eternity. For Sheol cannot thank you. Death cannot praise you, because you're not going to give me to them. They can't say thank you for this life. Those who go down to the pit cannot hope for your faithfulness. It is the living who give thanks to you, as I do today. A father tells his sons about your faithfulness. The Lord will surely save me, so we will play my songs on stringed instruments all the days of our life in the house of the Lord. That's what Dad does. He tells his kids about what God has done, and I'm going to get that. He's a musician. I'm going to get out my old guitar. We're going to sing some songs during these 15 years about what God has done to give me more time. Now, he's got a problem. Paul was allowed to be sick because of what problem? Pride. Thorn in the flesh, because messenger of Satan, because of pride, because of the visions and revelation that he had. In 2 Chronicles 32, it says this in 3 verses. In those days, Hezekiah became mortally ill, prayed to the Lord, and the Lord spoke to him, gave him a sign. This is what it adds. But Hezekiah gave no return for the benefit he received, because his heart was proud. Therefore wrath came on him and on Judah and Jerusalem. However, Hezekiah humbled the pride of his heart, both he and the inhabitants of Jerusalem, so that the wrath of the Lord did not come on them in the days of Hezekiah. What's going to happen is he's going to be prideful now. He's going to come off of being healed. He's going to come off of 185,000 being defeated by the greatest nation on earth, and them going home with their tail between their legs. The rising empire of Babylon is going to show up at his door. They've heard of this. The Assyrians, who were so powerful, on their way to Egypt to fight Egypt, and decided they'd mop up Judah on the way, God defended Judah, and the angel killed 185,000, decimated their army. They went back. Babylon hears about this, hears about Hezekiah, this happening as well as his recovery, and they show up. And that's what it goes on to say, verse 15, or 12 through 15. At that time, Berodach Baladan, say that with me, Berodach Baladan, the son of Baladan, king of Babylon, sent letters and a present to Hezekiah, for he heard that Hezekiah had been sick. He probably had a get well card, and he signed it and all that. This guy, his very name means, I am a rebel and there is no God. Why would you trust that guy? Why would you let that guy get your bank account password or your combination to your safe or anything like that? That's the guy that shows up. I heard you've been sick. Yeah. I am a rebel, and there is no God, is what he says. But Hezekiah is so prideful that he's vulnerable. When God does these amazing things in our lives, sometimes we are just not ready for what Satan's going to throw at us. And here Satan throws Babylon at him. Babylon wasn't a threat. They're going to be a threat. This is about 100 years before they're going to take Judah into captivity. Judah, Hezekiah, thought their problem was Assyria. That was Israel's problem. Israel's fallen. Israel's gone at this time because the Assyrians took them into captivity. Babylon is going to be the ones that are going to take Judah, the southern kingdom, into captivity. And now, here comes Berodach Baladan. He shows up because he heard he had been sick. In 2 Chronicles 32, it again says this, even in the matter of the envoys of the rulers of Babylon, who sent to him to inquire of the wonder that had happened in the land, 185,000 killed. God left him alone only to test him that he might know all that was in his heart. God left Hezekiah alone to expose his heart. God backed off. Hezekiah is dealing with all of his pride. And God left him alone and allowed the consequences and all of that to compound into his life. And God didn't send him Isaiah this time and tell him, don't talk to him. He left him alone. Your pride needs to be dealt with here. And here came the king of Babylon. And, God leaves us alone sometimes so that we can feel the full brunt of the consequences of our sin. And let that get our attention, because God could send the Word of God to us. He could send someone in the church and say, I was reading this, and I think this is for you. Pride doesn't listen. Pride doesn't care. So God said, I back off. I'm going to leave you alone. And expose your heart. Sometimes as a pastor, when you're dealing with somebody, and there are bad church members. Did y'all know that? There are bad church members. There's nothing you can do to change them. And sometimes you just have to back off. And when everything's going good and no issues are coming up, you don't know who people are. But when a difficult issue comes out that can be divisive, sometimes you just back off and watch what happens. Because you get in the middle of it, you're not going to change them. But you back off and you watch them expose their heart. And maybe for years, they thought there was no problem with them. But this issue, you just watched what it did, and it kind of brought to the surface. And here you have Hezekiah. This pride is built up. What would you be like if 185,000 were coming after you and God's angel just sapped them? Well, I'm pretty cool. God really loves me. He's sending angels out to take care of all my enemies. And look what he did. I was on my deathbed. He's on the preaching circuit now. Look how much God loves me. God said, all right, I'm going to back off and let you get the consequences of that attitude. And so he's not guarded. And it says Hezekiah listened to them. He showed them all the treasures of his house, the silver, the gold, the spices, the precious oil, and the house of his armor, all that was found in his treasuries. There was nothing in his house, nor in all his dominion, that Hezekiah did not show them. Because he's prideful. I'm invincible. I'm bulletproof. Now Isaiah shows up. Isaiah the prophet came to King Hezekiah and said to him, what did these men say? From where have they come to you? Hezekiah said, they've come from a far country, Babylon. What have they seen in your house? Well, they have seen all that's in my house. There's nothing among my treasures that I have not shown them. Yeah, you've shown them. You've given them the key. You've shown them exactly where you've hidden your treasure. Everything they needed to know, you showed them. They'll be back. That's what he says here. Then Isaiah said to Hezekiah, hear the word of the Lord. Behold, the days are coming when all that is in your house, all that is in your fathers have laid up and stored to this day will be carried to Babylon. Nothing shall be left. Some of your sons who shall issue from you, whom you will beget, will be taken away. They will become officials in the palace of the king of Babylon. Who would that be? Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego. It's exactly what Babylon's going to do. They're going to show up and they're going to take the cream of the crop, the officials, the royal seed. They're going to take them. That's going to be 100 years in the future, but it's coming. It's coming. You're going to have 15 more years here. Then you're going to have 52 years of his son, Manasseh. You're going to have so many years of Josiah, the grandson. And then everything's going to go pot after Josiah's done. And Babylon's going to be coming in and just mopping up with a last couple of kings and dragging one, I think Zedekiah, dragging him off with a hook in his nose. I think he kills all of his family and then blinds him. It's going to get bad quick in about 100 years. And all because Grandpa, great, whatever, said, here, look, Babylon, this is exactly what you want to come and get. And they'll be back. Because God's wiped out the Assyrians, who were your major enemy. So now you're free to grow and to come back as soon as you're ready, because you know where to find it. You know where to find me. So he prophesied this. And again, this is the first mention of Babylon as an empire and impending trouble. Hezekiah was only worried about Assyria. He didn't realize, and he was blind because of his pride, that he should be worried about Babylon. Then Hezekiah said to Isaiah, the word of the Lord, which you have spoken, is good. For he thought, it is not so if there would be peace. Is it not so that there will be peace and truth in my days? It's okay, because it ain't going to hit me. Isn't it? Yeah, we got a national debt that's off the chart, but you know what? I'll let my grandkids worry about that. Our nation's in decline, but I can still retire well. I'm old enough. My going out will be okay. Boy, my poor grandchild. They're going to have to grow up with a terrible culture. You know, we've allowed abortion and Bible being pulled out of school and prayer being pulled out and all these horrible decisions by Supreme Courts and politics. But you know what? That's their worry. That'll be their worry for their lifetime, because it's going to snowball and it's going to hit them like a ton of bricks in the next 40, 50 years. But I'll be gone. So it's good. And what a great grandpa. What a great grandpa. Sorry for what I'm leaving you, kids. Sorry about the church in America that's gone all this way away from the gospel and getting worse and worse and seeker sensitive and not even preaching the gospel anymore. But you know what? In my day, we had a great church. Church in the 80s, oh, I love that church. We preached the gospel. But, you know, yeah, all that's gone now, but, you know, I had a good day. It was a good day. You know, it's 15 years ago to come. And it says in the rest of the acts of Hezekiah and all his might, and how he made the pool, the conduit, which is like this long cut-through stone thing that they did, 1,700 feet, brought water into the city. They're written in the book of the Chronicles, Kings of Judah. Hezekiah slept with his father. And then this last little phrase, Manasseh. Manasseh, his son, became king in his place. Manasseh was born 3 years into this 15 years of extra time. He finally got that heir who would be the worst king in Israel's history, or challenge for it. Yes. Some people say, and J. Vernon McGee says, he should have died. If you'd just died, we wouldn't have Manasseh. But then you wouldn't have Josiah. It's kind of strange. You get such a godly guy who has such an ungodly kid who has such a godly child. It's like it skips these generations like a stone over water. All right, you look at all this and you ask yourself the question, is your house in order? Not financially, per se, but if I was told that I'm going to die, I would think financially, but I would also think spiritually. Is my house in order? Am I ready to see God face to face? Is my life there? Are there things that I've left undone? 15 years, 15 minutes, whatever you have, both of those are nothing compared to eternity. Am I ready to step out of this life and to step into an eternity? And something else that he has given here, he's given 15 years. He's given a 15-year countdown. He knows exactly when he's going to die. So it's like, okay, I got 14 now. Okay, I got 12 left. Okay, we're here. This is the last year. So many months, so many days. Who gets that? But he got 15 years exactly to count it down. Dennis Waitley, I told this story in the Philippines, but he was running through an airport to try to get to a flight, and he got right to the door, and they shut the door on him. And he was begging, I got to go. I got to get on that flight. And they said, sorry, rules, regulations, we cannot reopen that door now that it's been shut. And he was so angry. And he went back, and he was going to give that airline a piece of his mind, so he went back to the place where you do your checking in, and he got in that line that goes like all this stuff. And while he was waiting in that line, an announcement came over that said that Flight 191 had crashed on takeoff with no survivors. The flight he was on. And he had the ticket in his hand. He was going, I want a refund for what you did, and I guess his luggage probably got in that, but he was so angry. But when he heard that, he didn't ask for a refund. He took that ticket, and it sits in his office now on a shelf to remind him of the sovereignty of God. Our times are in his hands, and we need to be thankful for that. Even when we are tempted to be angry at a moment or delay or an issue, to remember that God is sovereign. God has it all in control. Paul in Philippians, he made the statement, for me to live is Christ. He thought about dying. For me to live, to die is gain, but for me to live is Christ. And you think about when he wrote that I'm ready to go, I'm ready to die. But I looked up all of the things that he wrote after he wrote that. Because he wrote that supposedly in 62 AD. After he wrote that, how much of the Bible we're not going to have if he would have died when he wrote that about, for me to live as Christ, to die as gain? Colossians, Philemon, Ephesians, 1 Timothy, Titus, 2 Timothy. We wouldn't have that in our Bible if he would have died. To live as Christ, to die as gain. In fact, in 2 Timothy, the last book he wrote, he said this, I fought the good fight. I've finished the course. I've kept the faith. In the future, there's laid up for me a crown of righteousness, which the Lord will award to me on that day, and not to me only, but all who have loved his appearance. He wrote that in the last book, the last chapter that he wrote. But he was ready to go in Philippians. But God kept him around for a few more years. If God's given you a few more years, what's it for? What's it for? We're not given it spelled out like Hezekiah, 15 years exactly, but you've got today, tomorrow. What are you doing with it? It's all going to come to an end. We're all going to come to that point in time with each of us to die. But he got off that deathbed. You're going to get off bed tomorrow, God willing. What are you going to do with it? What are you going to do with the next 15, 20, 30 years, 2 years of your life? Our times are in God's hands, and God has a purpose. Don't be popping out Manassas. Work for a Josiah. Work for revivals and things. Recognize your time is limited, and every moment is a gift from God. All right.